Hi, this is Marla and welcome. I'm so glad that you're joining me today for the July Oh So Inspired collaboration hop hosted by Call Me Crafty Al. You can use the hashtag on the screen to find all the participants in the hop, or I will also have links to their videos in the description box below. Our inspiration piece this month comes from Carol Hintemeyer and Honeybee Stamps. This is the card that inspired mine today. I will have all of Carol's information to her social media sites linked in the description box below. The products that I'm using are from CottageCutz. I have the winter pine and birch tree. I also am using some Catherine Pooler inks in sage, Deck the Halls, Martini, and Spruce. I have Written in Ribbon Holiday, which is a two-step stamp, and then I have the coordinating dies. I'll be using the Sub Sentiment Christmas, and then I'll use some sentiment strip dies from the Greetery. All of the products that I'm using will be linked in the description box below. I'm starting with a dry piece of accent opaque cardstock. I am going to do some ink smushing using those Catherine Pooler inks. I laid down, the lighter color is called Sage and the darker color is called Spruce. Again, the ink has been spritzed with water. My panel is dry and I am just smushing that dry panel into that wet ink. When you are doing ink smushing, if you don't want your colors to meld together, you do need to dry in between applications, and that allows the ink to layer up. It allows you to keep the true color for the most part of all of the different colors that you're using, especially in this case because I am using the same color family. All of these are greens. I added the Deck the Halls, which has a little bit more of a blue tone, and then you can see that this Martini is very vibrant. Again, drawing in between each of the applications, adding a little bit more of this sage to my mat, a little more Deck the Halls, trying to fill in some of that white space. I will use these panels off camera to cut out my pine trees from the winter pine and birch. There are two trees in that die. One is more of a spruce tree and the other one I'm going to call a lodgepole. So here's what happens if you wet your paper and add it to the wet ink. You can see how much softer those colors are, how those colors kind of blended into each other. I'm going to do this one more time with the Martini, and then I'm going to go back. I did dry my panel, and I'm going to go back to that smushing. I'm going to get more texture. As you can see, you saw that when those colors melded together that it was much smoother, but I really wanted that texture so that I have that nice interest on my trees when I do the die cutting. This is going to add texture to the background of my card. I was inspired by the Honeybee Stamp 3D embossing folder that Carol used on her project. I don't have that 3D embossing folder, so I'm creating my own 3D effect using these pine trees. This month I've been working on Christmas in July, and so I am turning this into a Christmas card. You notice that with Carol's card, she had more of a summer mountain scene with the cabin and the pine trees, and for me, as I mentioned, am participating in Christmas in July. I wanted to create a Christmas card, but I really, again, was inspired by the pine trees, the 3D embossing folder in the background, and so I looked through my stash to see what I had that could help me recreate something that was not exactly similar, but it really does have that added dimension and texture as the embossing folder did. I added one of the spruce trees to the left side, one of the lodge poles to the right, and then I'm going to layer two other trees over top, again adding that texture to the background, and then I'll do the same thing to the bottom half of this card panel. Now I could have added more pine trees and overlapped more to the left and the right sides. I chose not to do that. I chose to go with 4 and 4. I am going to trim off those trunks, and I am going to keep this card panel at 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. This is a piece of Spellbinder Forest cardstock. I will have all of the products that I've used linked in the description box below, so if you're interested in any of those products, you can find them easily in the description box. I also wanted to mention that if you wanted to participate, if there was something in this hop that inspired you to create a card, we would love for you to tag us by using the hashtag #IWasOhSoInspired, so that we can see how we inspired you to create something. And we really hope, that is our hope when we're doing these videos, which come out on the 20th of each month, that you would participate along with us. All right, so I cut out the word Mary using the coordinating dies from Written in Ribbon Holiday. I'm starting with my first layer of stamping using the Sage ink. I'm going to add the second layer on. So this is going to give me kind of a two-tone for my sentiment, and I'm going to stamp using, oh man, I think it's Spruce. Once I get that added, I am going to add the sub-sentiment strip to the bottom, and I'll add the word Christmas, again stamping in Spruce. I cut out the word Mary and my sentiment strip die 3 times so that I could stack them together so I would get that nice chipboard feel. I'm going to add a little bit of white gouache, actually a lot of bit of white gouache. Who am I kidding? I wanted to go very heavy-handed with this. I thought that it filled in some of the bare space on the forest cardstock. Made sure to dry once I got that full application of the gouache, and then I'm going to add this to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch top folding card base. And I'll bring in my stack sentiments and we will add them to the front of our card. I'm going to angle the Mary a little bit, and then I'll add the sub-sentiment Christmas underneath it. I do have some little gems that I'm going to be adding from Trinity Stamps that are called Bubble Bath. They're a really pretty iridescent little gem. You know, I tend to go with odd numbers when I'm adding my gems, but I also tend to add like a certain amount towards the top of the sentiment and then a certain amount underneath the sentiment. And there are lots of creators out there that add these little gems all over their card, and I never know when to stop, if I've added too many or if I've added too few. I went for it this time. I added more, and not quite in clusters as I usually do. Here's a look at Carol's card and my card together, and then a couple of close-ups. Let me know in the comments section if I added too many baubles. I want to thank you for joining me, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Don't forget to use the hashtag to find all of the other participants. Thanks so much for joining me today.